Hi everyone,
Guys.
welcome to Blonde Vibrations. Today we are tuning in with Daisy Veacock. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So we kind of were thinking about the structure of this interview and we wanted to kind of start, it won't be all chronological, but start somewhat chronologically and kind of thinking about your musical background, because obviously you work a lot with your dad on your music, which is something that I always see you do, and I think it's so sweet how involved he is. And so do you think that kind of really threw you into the deep end with music? At what point can you kind of feel your appreciation start for music? Was it something that was always important to you?
I think it was always like so important to me because like my whole adolescence, my whole childhood was just like being at gigs, which is just the coolest thing in the world. I mean, I'm probably gonna have terrible hearing when I'm older because like back in the day they didn't have like hearing protectors for like children, so I was probably just like next to giant speakers.
They need you for a loop earplug ad.
Yeah, and I wear them like at every show now because and I'm like, oh my poor ears,
You're better than us.
Yeah,
we don't.
But I've always like loved music. I don't think I realised I wanted to go into it until I was maybe like 14 or 15. I remember sitting down and watching the Amy Winehouse documentary. I was just like, she's just so fucking cool. And I'd never felt like pain like that. I'd never kind of like, I sort of was just watching this documentary and I hadn't really known much about Amy Winehouse. I remember her dying, but I didn't really remember anything about her. And I remember watching this documentary and being like, this is amazing, this is so cool. And then when it kind of got to the sadder end of her life, I just remember being so devastated and so like genuinely moved by this like person and her music and her passion for the music and how she just lived and breathed like jazz. And I thought that was incredible, and I just knew I wanted to make things like that, and I wanted to move people the way that moved me, basically.
It feels very like the two of you are both very kind of reciprocal in the way that you approach jazz music. Do you know what I mean? It feels like jazz music influences the way you write, but also you still have control over what you want to do. And I guess it is a kind of a trait of the genre, is that it does work that kind of both ways. But it's really interesting that you did kind of mention Amy Winehouse, because it is that kind of relationship between...
I love that she made jazz music sort of more digestible as pop music. Like when you look at the Back to Black album, when you look at like Rehab, that's like, it's like a really simple kind of 4-chord song basically, but it's so jazzy and it's got so much like soul to it, and I think that's what's really brilliant about Amy Winehouse, and I think that's what I want to try and do with my music. I want to like combine all these like different things, because that's like what I love about music. You can take all these different aspects and just like smush them together, and it's just...
You're definitely doing that.
Thank
you saying that, I'm like, you could just sub out the word and that's what you do. Like you do combine kind of jazz and pop and make it something that people from, dependent on what genre they like, will take things from it and enjoy it.
We always say about artists, I don't know why, there's just a few that we're like, you almost make your own genre. You pull parts from everything. Like it doesn't just have to be pop or rap or jazz or whatever. It's taking the influences and the elements from it to make it your own sound. So when people hear it, it's, I can't quite tell what I'm listening to, but I know who I'm listening to.
It's a question I struggle with when people go, what genre do you make? And I go, I don't know. What am I listening to at the moment? Existential. That is a big existential question, massively. Yeah. But I love jazz music, I love pop music, I want to make all of those things.
So did you feel like there was a deliberate shift in taking your love of music from, just a hobby or a skill or something I'm quite good at, to actually wanting to pursue it as a career? Or do you think it kind of happened organically without even really noticing?
Sort of both. When I was kind of getting into songwriting, I was in that kind of early days of YouTube with people like Dodie and like all that stuff. And I remember Dodie specifically, I remember watching her when I was like 15, and I was like, who is this girl that's just like sat in her bedroom writing music? I could do that too. And like, that was like a real kind of switch in my brain of like, I can do this and I can write music. And I was really passionate about like art at the same time. I remember when I was in sort of doing my GCSEs, I was like, I want to do art. And I've always loved art. I always try and bring it into music, but I never quite saw a pathway into it in the same way that I saw music. And obviously my dad is a musician and I've seen him make a life from it and very happy life from it. And I was like, do you know what, I can do that. And now my mum is an artist as well, so it's kind of like it actually balanced out really, really well. But it just spoke to me, and it was the thing I was good at, and I was like, I've never felt like there is anything else that's supposed to be for me more than music is. Like, I'm just like, I have to do this, and if I don't do it, like, in some way, I don't know what else to do, really.
It's like, in the dictionary definition, it feels like it's your calling. Like, you will find a way to do it. And we kind of feel a very similar way with the podcast, isn't it? It was always kind of, you have this almost blind feeling
you
that
just
this is what you're supposed to do,
like in your gut you're like,
and
I have to do
and regardless of anything, you just have to keep powering through. And I love it when I hear other creatives say that, because it's a really interesting, it's a very scary feeling, but it's also a very satisfying feeling, I feel, when you kind of sit with it for a while and you're like, no, this is what I want to do, and I will find a way to make it work.
I love that when you meet other creative people like that as well. I'm like, you get it, you get it. You know.
Like, so it's like you don't necessarily know where you're going to end up, but if it's anywhere close to the feeling that it gives you,
terrifying,
then
but
it's
like
great.
It's so fun. It's so good. Yeah, no.
And it's really interesting to hear you talk about how you started and this feeling that it's what you're going to kind of pursue. Because I was looking at our Instagram, and we've been mutuals for a while.
Yeah,
and
you guys have been here since day dot.
And I was thinking, and I was like, I think like we played Pickle Juice back when we were a radio show, and I was like, I knew we'd known of each other for a while, but when I was on that chat, I was like, wow, no. Like,
you guys have been on the press release since like you're like one of the first names that like was on my press release
love
ever.
It. And we always respond, and we're like, so lovely to hear, because it is, and it's just been such a pleasure to kind of see you grow as the time's gone on.
Thanks for the support.
And it's just, and it's so like nice to hear you say about this kind of gut feeling that this is what you want to do, because I think that's probably what brought us to you. Is that kind of, we're really drawn by that passion.
Oh, that's so nice.
This feels like our big hear me out, but have you seen Inside Out? Firstly.
Yeah,
okay, great.
Of course.
We feel like, if you know Jake Shane, he's always like, I don't know if you know Inside Out. Have you seen Inside Out? But we keep talking about like core memories that shape you as a BA.
Oh, yeah, I love this. I love
and
this.
like the memory orb.
Yeah,
I love
what they're called.
So do you think there's any experiences or notable events that you can cite as something that has shaped you to be the artist you are today?
This is such a good question.
Like, what are the memory orbs, the core memories
the
on
little
that?
characters in my head are just like spinning about right now.
What makes the island that is Daisy?
The island that is Daisy. I think I think like I remember the first time I sat and played my dad a song I wrote when I was like probably like 14. I probably played him stuff before then, but the real like memory I had, and I remember him kind of being like, you need to show people this, and I was like, maybe I'm kind of like, maybe this is actually something I'm good at, and I can like sort of express that. And then there's obviously like teachers and stuff that like at school that would really kind of go, oh, do you know what, like you kind of you can write things, and that's really interesting, you should explore that. And then sort of after school, when I was actually getting into music, my first ever show was like a real one. Like I remember playing like my first ever show in the Hoxton Underbelly with one of those like slightly crappy, not good promoters that like steal loads of money from artists, but let's not go into that now. And I had to like pretend I was 18 because I turned 18 like 4 days later, and I was like, I'm 18 and I can totally play this gig. And I remember playing this show, and it just like all my friends showing up and people singing with me, and I was just like that. I knew in that moment I was like, this has to be what I do forever. And then the Albert Hall show, which was just, I've spent my whole life going to watch Jules Holland play at the Albert Hall every single year since I was a tiny, teeny baby. And they then asked me if I wanted to open for Jules at the Albert Hall. And I remember just standing on that stage and just like crying my eyes out because I was just like, this is the most incredible thing in the world. And nothing will prepare you for playing in that room. And nothing. It's just like, it's just the most beautiful, amazing thing in the entire world. So
I
think
feel
that
like
will-
you just pulled a memory orb for me, because I remember seeing that on your social media, and I remember just thinking like, wow, that is the most incredible thing, and I can almost picture your post, and I just like, you're gonna get me crying.
It's just like, it was so emotional, and like everyone I cared about was there, and you know, it was a tough year last year. Like I lost my grandparents, my dad was ill last year, and it was just like in that moment everything was okay. And I had a moment where I sort of said like, this would have been really important to my grandparents. And then Jules, when he did his set, he said something about his grandparents, and it was just like a whole really like moving thing. And
it's such an incredible venue to be having that discussion in as well.
Yeah.
Like
it's so like the Albert Hall is so generational as well. Like so much. Like I feel like everyone has some sort of connection to it as well. Like I remember we went to go see the Doctor Who prom there. I was like 10. And
memory orb.
Yeah, no, that is a memory orb. Watching the Doctor Who proms there when I was like a small child, because I was so obsessed with Doctor Who, and then I got to like go and like I was like, no way, Matt Smith sat in this like very room.
That is cool though. That's still cool now.
Definitely.
Love Matt Smith.
We always get a bit like starry-eyed when we're in the Albert Hall. Like I'm like, it is just incredible.
It's so beautiful. Yeah. So those are my memory. Or there's probably so many more, like Glastonbury as well. That's always going to be like.
But you have to retrieve them. You can't look at them all at once.
No,
You have to get them
it's
down
so
that
hard.
little
I'll
tunnel.
just get really emotional and cry. Yeah. No, there's so many like fantastic moments with so many different people, and not just like music, just like life as well.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. Because
And
life and music.
And while we're kind of talking about this really randomly extended inside out metaphor that I'm so glad you
I'm
understood,
loving this.
because it really is.
Can you imagine if I was like, I've never seen this film?
Yeah, it would be kind of awkward right now, but I'm glad we vibe checked you correctly.
Yeah.
But kind of thinking about, you know, we're completely switching the vibe to kind of the more like somber, kind of sadder moments. But we're kind of thinking like, have you ever faced self-doubt or even areas of self-sabotage, and how have you overcome them to get to this moment? Because it's something we've been talking about a lot on the podcast recently, and we wanted to hear your perspective as an artist and how that varies from kind of, you know, relationships and things like that.
It's, I think as an artist, especially like in current world, it's so hard. It's really, really hard. Like, you know, I was talking to a friend the other day, and I sort of had like a bit of a like low moment, because I was just tired, and I'm just knackered from kind of like working 2 jobs and like trying to balance all this stuff. And I saw my friend, and she was just like, "You're killing it at the moment. You're doing so well." And I was like, do you know what? It's so weird that like obviously the world you present online, it's like it's all this stuff that's happening, and then you're kind of like, but I'm really tired, and I feel really down, and I feel like it's not going to happen. And it's like, do you know what? Actually, it's just kind of keeping coming around and believing in yourself, and it's really, really hard to not kind of crash and burn when you hit those lows. And I think, you know, some people will be doing this for years, and if you know that it's what you're supposed to do, you just have to keep doing it. Like I was listening to that podcast with Nick Grimshaw and Annie McManus with CMAT on it, and she was like, do you know what, I was working shit jobs for 10 years, and she's just been nominated for like the Mercury Award, and that is crazy. Like you just have to like, I think you have to sit in the moments of self-doubt, because, you know, there's been so many moments where I've sat bawling my fucking eyes out on my bedroom floor, being like, I'm never going to do this, it's never going to happen. But do you know what, then there's something else will happen, and you just got to work your butt off and sit in it, I think. Yeah, it's very hard.
I really appreciate you saying that, because I think it's something that people don't want to share. And again, it's something we talk about a lot, in the idea of, like, you obviously want to present the best parts, and you know, at the end of the day, social media is a highlight reel, and I don't want to post me being upset, because why do I want to remember it? But I think it is so important, and like, again, I feel like it really resonates. You know, in the summer we had a very similar moment where I remember we were like on a train platform, and I was like,
it's always in some form of transport.
I think like we just gotten like a rejection from a festival, and I remember just thinking like, this has been such a hard summer for progress, and I was just like, and I just feel like we're hitting the 3-year mark now, and just no one wants to hear it, and just no one wants to see it.
I do.
And thank you. But I feel like it's really like hard to say that, and I think like a short while after I went on the podcast, and I was like, you know, we sit here and we give you motivational talks, and you know, you sit there and you're like, here's this great song that I've written, and here's me having loads of fun producing it. But I think it is in those moments that when you hear someone else saying it, it feels like those emotions, let's go back to the metaphor, aren't actually taking over your little...
Yeah, you can't have those core memories without these core memories.
Yeah.
They're all like,
So yeah, I really appreciate that.
And it's also like, it then leads you to appreciate the good moments, because then not long after we were like, we started to develop this series, we were like, right, well, we can't sit in it forever, let's do something.
It makes you do things. It makes you do things,
Absolutely. And I think it's interesting while we're talking about social media is how you kind of treat that as an artist. And I mean, it's been really vital to your growth, you know. But do you think it has helped with the community aspect of it? You know, obviously, it's such a numbers game that sometimes it's hard to think of it as that as a community. But do you still see that side?
Oh, yeah, massively. I think the hardest bit with social media for me is like when I know I need to shut off is just the comparison element. I think the hardest part of being, you know, an artist or someone making a podcast or whatever it is like you see people, like we have access to literally every single moment of everyone's lives currently, and most of the time it's actually not what's going on in their life. It's like, it's just a facade, because people aren't going to be like, I had an awful day today and I cried. People, I mean, someone might tweet that, but like it's not like something you're really jumping to share.
Especially if you're face to face with the fan. You know, someone who's like, I really like that song, and you're like,
that was the worst experience of my life, but thank you so much. But I think like social media, I have such a love-hate relationship with it. Like I think like I kind of have gotten over the numbers thing a little bit more now, like because I was really kind of like, I should have like 100k on TikTok, and I'm like, do you know what, I don't have 100k on TikTok, but I have really engaged people on there, and I love Twitter at the moment. Twitter is like my favorite app ever, and I feel like I've seen a lot of growth through just kind of like just talking to people, man. Like that's my favorite thing ever. I like talking to people, and I like when people message me and they sort of say, you know, I heard your song and it sort of helped me through this situation, or it's done this or that, and I'm like, that's insane. That's so crazy that you are having this like experience. And I actually really like posting on TikTok now. I remember when, like back in the day when you guys first came into my life, when I was posting about pickle juice, I was working like 6 days in a coffee shop. I was 18, like freshly 18, and I was like, oh, I've got to do this TikTok thing, and someone was like, you have to post 5 times a day on TikTok. So I was posting 5 TikToks a day, working 6 days in a coffee shop, and I was just like exhausted. And do you know what, it boosted my song, and it was the first time I like really got into it. But now I've realized that I kind of go through like ebbs and flows of it. Like I do like a song release, and I'll really push the song release, and then I will try and take a bit of a step back and kind of like reprocess and kind of like give me some time to actually work on the music. Like I think I saw something that Ellie Dixon posted about this a few weeks ago that someone shared on their story, that was just like, she was like, we need time as artists to actually like rest and experience life, because there's like, you can't be making like music if you're just kind of like, and a TikTok and another TikTok and this one, and I'm marketing and then shoot and then like whatever it is. It's like you need time to sort of break, I think, which is so hard. It's so hard to shut off, and then sort of someone starts texting you being like, you haven't posted on TikTok in 5 days, and you're like, oh my god, I'm so sorry.
Because we even have it, like, we're not musicians, but we still use social media as a platform to, you know, try and grow and reach new people. And it kind of is like, you kind of have to do it at this point. But it's so frustrating sometimes, because you could make you could edit a TikTok for an hour, and you're like, okay, that flopped, that got no views, and then the off-the-cuff one that you made in 6 seconds or 10 minutes, that will go viral.
This is so frustrating.
What is your experience with that? Because on our level, it's annoying. If you're like, oh, that one's going to do so well, put so much effort in, and then no one sees it.
Especially for an artist that has so much like visual elements.
I mean, that sodding bus I made. I went on holiday and I came home and we were like, how do we make this bus content interesting? Because we were like, we don't want to just like get on the bus and film, because I was like, a lot of people are doing that. Like we were like, we wanted to make something really interesting. So me and Christian, who is my sort of social media guru person, he's great, he's amazing.
We know Christian.
Do you know Christian? Everyone knows him. Everyone knows him. He's just like, I've never met someone that creatively gels with me in the same way. And we were like, okay, what can we do? And Christian went, you're going to make this bus out of cardboard. And I was like, okay. So I just kind of locked myself in my room for like 4 days, making this bleeding bus out of cardboard. And then he pulled up with this little camping trolley, this little red camping trolley. We glued this bus to this camping trolley and then sort of were pulling it around East London when we sat inside it. And I'm not even kidding, like the second, it took us so long to assemble this bus, the second we put it up, it just pissed with rain. And we were just like, we made all these like gorgeous videos still, and we were like, this looks amazing, we're so pleased with this, it's gonna go so viral. And then like I set my phone up on one bus ride for like a 0.5 for literally 30 seconds, and that does like sort of 20k. And I'm like, that.
It's so frustrating, and it's one of those situations where I feel like when you dream of being a musician, you're like, I don't picture myself in my room for 4 days making a marble bus. Like, I thought I'd be making more music.
I did
buses.
Love doing it though. It was like, it's just sat in my like spare room at the moment, and I'm just like, there's my bus that I made, and it's just in pieces now because it rained.
You could frame it.
I think
get like a really big frame and like flatten it out or something.
I want to keep it for something.
Yeah.
Like with the kind of like release of like an EP for this EP, I'm just like, I need this bus somewhere.
It can't have been for nothing.
Yeah, it
can't be for nothing.
Someone needs to see it.
I'm surprised you're not trying to get it in the cover somehow, like any way to get it there.
We were just, the bus.
Could have brought it today.
Start carrying it around with me in my backpack. That bus.
So with the trends of the music industry being so community-based, as we've kind of just been talking about, I feel like it's kind of a breeding ground for this idea of oversharing and mass producing social media. And kind of like you said, this makes it hard to then be in that creative bubble where you've got nothing else and you're just kind of writing purely about your experiences, which is kind of what you were just saying about how artists should take time off social media to do that. And now it feels like there's just this constant stream of, people telling you what they want to hear and what they want to see. And what we're interested in is how you balance this double-edged sword of the requirement to create promotional media but still eliminating the outside influence in your own creative process to make sure what you still make is very true to yourself.
Yeah. Do you know what? This is hard. Like, I think I found, I'm maybe not going to name which song it was, but I found that one of the songs that I've put out this year, my starting point was actually, before I actually wrote the song, my starting point was, how would I market this? And I was like, I need to come up with a really, really fun idea to market it. And I was kind of upset about that at the time. It turned into something so beautiful that I loved, and it was kind of really shaped by my life. But I had like a real vision, and I kind of had never written like that before, where like I was like working backwards from TikTok promotion, and then that's like a completely new feeling. I think I think that's come into play in the last like few years since like the pandemic and rise of TikTok and social media. But that was a little bit scary. It was kind of like I sort of really had to sit myself down after that and be like, wait a minute, wait a sec. Yeah. But I think generally with how I write music, I have such a kind of like, because it's so specific to sort of tiny little things in my life. I have a real vision for what I want it to be. And I think because I talk to my friends and I talk to people around me, and I'm like, what is your experience of like what this song is about? Like, how have you had an experience where you've like really liked someone and it's not worked out, or like have you, whatever it is. And I'll then like go off my friends' experiences and try and kind of make something that's relatable for everybody a little bit. But it's very difficult to keep the music separate. I think I find it sort of upsetting sometimes that I can't quite have the songs just by themselves anymore. It's like it has to be this digestible thing, and like there's so many like great songs that I love that I've written that I have steered away from releasing as well, or pushing as singles just because they're sadder or they're like more lo-fi. And I sort of am like, I panic because I'm like, it's not going to do as well on socials. People aren't going to be as into it because it's sad, and I don't know how to market that. And that's that sucks.
It feels like a kind of elephant in the room, and I can imagine that's really hard to get that out of that. Is that, we were even saying earlier, you kind of don't want to be making social media, but you have to make social media, and it's just like this constant cycle where it's like, how do you balance that?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think it's like it's definitely not a unique experience to be feeling that way. Like often we speak to artists and they have the same argument.
Even with the podcast, like in itself, we could very much just be, you know, audio podcast, but we obviously want all of the elements as well, so you have to consider it.
It's like, it is really enjoyable, like as a consumer, as a lover of TikTok, I love consuming these things. Like I've been loving the Lily Allen and Makita Oliver podcast, and every so often I just like log on and like one of them has posted a like video clip of the podcast. I'm like, oh my god, did they film it as well? Like that's crazy. And it's like, I actually really enjoy that visual element of it, but you know, it's. I think sometimes it can remove the actual substance and importance of the music.
Yeah.
Because if you're writing a track about something quite dark and hard to talk about, you don't want to then be on like social media like, oh my god, listen to my song.
Let's
like,
all do this joint dance.
Like, oh, that was actually a really difficult period of time, but let's make a TikTok dance. Yeah, it's a lot.
Okay, so let's talk about your creative process and the actual making of music. Something that we've admired whilst watching you release various songs over the past few years is the candidness and your ability to really tell a story in each song.
Guys.
How did this style of songwriting come about to you? Was it natural to take this diary entry way of expressing your emotions?
Ooh, I actually don't know. I think I honestly don't really know. I think songs for me, especially the ones that I release and the ones that I really, really love, they just kind of happen. Which, like, I think a lot of songwriters will tell you that, like, the best songs, the ones that you don't think about too much, they just kind of fall out of you. Weirdly, I don't know why I always write the second verse first. I don't
A lot of
know.
artists prefer the second verse. I hear that a lot where they're like, my best one is the second.
Yeah, I just like easily kind of slip into that kind of second verse, and I think I'm a real like visualizer with songwriting. Like I like to really describe the location and the people I'm with and what I was drinking or like what I was feeling or what I was wearing, or like so people have a real kind of like, it was here, it was this time, they look like that, this is how you felt, and then it gets to the chorus and it's like fun moment. But I don't really know how I kind of came into that. I loved musical theatre when I was little. I was like proper theatre kid. Like
That's a theme for today.
Is it? Yeah. Well, you had no, I was like proper like theatre kid. Like I was really, really like amazed by storytelling, and I think that's the real thing in musical theatre, and like the harmonies and the way things like the kind of ideas of like sort of musical sort of like melodies and stuff playing into each other, like in Wicked is so great, because like the way that the kind of motifs fall represent different things, which I think is really interesting. Same with Hamilton, but I will not get into Hamilton right now. But like we
could do a whole other.
Can I come back and do a podcast on Hamilton?
So fun.
Like I just think it's so interesting how, you know, melodies represent people or like feelings or you know, there's just so many things that you can play on. And I think controversy aside, I think the 1975 I've always really enjoyed that about like how Matty Healy specifically writes music, because there's like so many things that represent things and so many Easter eggs to different parts. And what I love about writing music, now I'm sort of a few years into it and a few years like into my artist project, you know, people will hear stuff in my music and be like, that's from that one song like 4 years ago. And I really like that kind of like leaving little traces, because it is just like my life after all, and I like it being my diary because it saves me writing an actual diary, because I should forget about that.
It's interesting that you've spoken about, you know, this person was here on this time, and it's all very specific, because we were was it a podcast or a video of Billie Eilish and Phineas, and they were talking kind of on the other side of things about how sometimes you don't want to know the entire backstory of a song, you don't want to know who it's about. How do you then strip that back so that listeners don't know everything about your life? You're protecting your privacy, but still being vulnerable in the lyrics. Or can you balance that, I suppose?
I think like I've been talking about this with my friends, and I think it's hard, because I think the reason I kind of got into writing music is I've always struggled to like tell people how I feel about stuff. And for me, it's like, if I write a song and pretend it's about something else, that person will still probably hear it in some aspects, and kind of, then it's almost like my way of being like, I told them what I meant. I told them how I felt. But I think it's really hard. I think especially the way I write, it's very much like, it's quite clearly about this, or it's quite clearly about that. And I'm just so the opposite of nonchalant. Like, I'll just tell everyone everything. But I think that is a hard balance to get. And I think also, you know, I will say something in a song. That doesn't mean I want to say it to someone's face, and I also don't want to drag people's names through the mud. That's my personal vendetta. Like, I don't need everyone else to be like fighting my battles for me, kind of thing. So I think it is very difficult, but as long as you're not name dropping in the song. But I know, I think the way Billie Eilish does it is really great. I really like that she doesn't quite deep dive too hard. You can make your own sort of decisions about what you feel, and I do want people to feel that when they listen to my music. Like the whole George thing, it was like, he's just this kind of like fictional character, because I never met him. He wasn't like, he technically wasn't a real person to me. Like I don't know him, he doesn't know me. Like, he's just a fictional character. And I think people in their life generally have a George. Like they have like a kind of like person that is George kind of thing. And I wanted it more to be like an idea rather than like an actual kind of physical being. Because poor old George, he's just probably sat somewhere just like not knowing.
Just on his view page, and he's like, oh no, is this about me?
It could be literally any George in the world. They could be like, is this song about me?
But I love that. I love the nonchalance of your music. Like, that's such the word for it, you know, like. And again, this is a running theme, is that like, we're very much the same. You know, if we're feeling something, we're going to say it. And it's an interesting kind of balance of, I don't know, like, I want to share things with you guys, and I want to be organic and say things. And when we were planning this, we were like, your music is quite literally like a podcast and a song. Like, you can listen to it, and it is like this time that this thing happened. I love that. And this is such like a silly question, but it's kind of, have you ever had anyone be like, is this about me? Because we have this all the time, and we talk about it a lot as well, because we're like, guys, like, humans are like egotistical. Like, you're gonna think it's about you, but like, it's probably not. And I think like Dolly Alderton started that conversation, and it's very much like,
so much.
Like, people will always think it's about them. But have you ever had that where someone's
like all the time. But I'm also like, there's like, you know, I think I have sort of dated musicians. Like, I've been on the other side of that. Like, I've also been like listening to music, and I've been like, hang on a minute. But then I'm also like, it's kind of, it's fair enough. I think there's that thing that Taylor Swift said that one time, that's sort of like, if you don't want people to say bad things about you, don't do bad things, or something like that.
Love the accent on that.
oh my God, Taylor!
I'm here. Like, I think, I've definitely had like, but I like to spin tales around my songs for those situations. I like to be like, it's totally about this completely unrelated random thing that happened all this other time ago that was nothing to do with you, and then like deep down I'm like, they know.
No, we have it where sometimes we'll record, and then after we're like, you know who I was on about, and then she's like, oh yeah, I was on about the same.
And sometimes like, we'll look at it and I'm like, we know that we're talking about this person, but it's only because we know, and anyone else watching won't know. But it is, you get in that paranoid space.
I love when I play shows and my friends are there and they're like, we know, and I'm like,
our editor loves it. She's always like, was this about so and so? We're like, yes.
I love it. But I also like, I love the inside jokes. Like, I love like an inside joke in something. I think that's so great. Like, the bus song like stemmed from me and my best mate sitting on a bus on the way back from like a club night, and there was like someone had spilled pasta all over the top deck of this bus, and like she listens to that song and she's like, it's the bus pasta song, and I'm like, yeah, it's the bus pasta song. And that I did post TikTok about that, and it did go like weirdly well. People were like, this song's about pasta on a bus, and I was like, oh god. So I like an inside joke in a song. I think that's a nice little sprinkle to add. you know.
This is like another additional question, but if someone was to say, is this about me? Would you just say yes?
Yeah.
100%. There's no like, oh,
yeah, block.
Like, end of conversation.
I mean, like, oh, finally you've realised. Okay, block. Yeah, time up.
So when we envisioned this series, we really wanted to use this space to spotlight other female artists. So who do you think has inspired you as you've paved your way into the music industry?
Guys, this is so hard. There's so many. Oh, it's so hard because there's like all the kind of big amazing artists who are like killing it. Like Olivia Dean has always been a massive one. I remember like me and my mate Ellie Evans, also amazing artist. Like we were just on the train one time on our way home from college when we were like 16. She was like, oh, I really like this artist. She's really cool. She's quite small still. And I was like, who is it? And she was like, Olivia Dean. I was like, I love Olivia Dean. And she was still really quite like unknown at this point, and then all of a sudden she's like the biggest, like kind of, and she did Glastonbury this year. I sat and cried at her Glastonbury set because it was so beautiful and moving. And when she did Carmen, and then she did Ladies' Room, which is apparently like about, someone told me it's about like the like pub toilet at my local pub, which is so cool. But like Olivia Dean, like Adele, like all these like amazing kind of like Ray. Ray.
You can't not love Ray.
You can't not. You can't about Ray. I could sit and talk about Ray all day. And there's so many like upcoming people that are just killing it. Like I think the girlies are holding it up right now. Like on the UK scene, it's like crazy. Like one of my bestest friends who's co-produced the EP that I've just done, Natsuma, incredible, amazing, Leona Rue, Karis Taylor, Leanne Lawrence, Lexi Carroll, like all these like incredible people who are just like slaying the game. And you know, obviously people like Nivella and Siobhan Winifred, Darcy Beth, my bass player, she's killing it. She's about to put a song out, and it's like I just hear all this music and I'm like, we're all just like in our bedrooms making these amazing songs.
It's a very easy time for us to be doing a series like this.
Yeah,
you guys are like, oh, great.
Is there anyone whose story writing kind of aligns with yours in a sense that you'd like to collaborate with them? Like whether that's really big artists or small artists, like is there anyone that you kind of think that would make a really cool song?
Ooh, I mean, to be fair, I would love to write with Olivia Dean. I think that would be a really interesting. I just love to see how she kind of goes into a session. I'd be really interested by that. Ray again. I think, you know, she is a songwriter at the end of the day. She's written some tunes, and I'm so like infatuated by her scatting at the moment. I've been just absolutely like, I've tried to put some in my set as well, because I used to just like practice scatting all the time, and I was like properly doing like singing training all the time, and I was like, how do I like make this part of my set as well? I'm trying to think who else. Who am I loving right now? There's just so many people coming to mind. There's so many people. I've been loving, this isn't a woman, but I've been loving Humble the Great's new album that he's just put out. I think that's a really fantastic album. It's just so many like incredible artists right now. I want to work with all of them.
Well, this feels like a good time.
I feel like we just keep asking you to name people.
Yeah.
We're like pushing you to your limits.
How many names can I remember?
Yeah, at least we've kind of like warmed up your brain for the next one. So I feel like you might be able to answer this quite easily. Who do you want to nominate Blonde Vibrations listeners to tune into next? Who should we have sat here in the chair next time?
My default is also, I always want to say Natsuma. Big up to Natsuma. I love that girl so much. But someone whose track I've just been like absolutely blasting it at the moment is Karis Taylor. I think she's fantastic, and I think she would very much fit the Blonde Vibrations vibe.
Great.
Thanks, you're making our work so easy. Like I'm listening back to this, like great.
Good to know.
She's so cool, man. Yeah, she's great.
Cool. So we're gonna go on to the agony aunt section. You guys already know and love it, but this is
insane advice from me.
This first one is wild. Let's just say that it's quite a big one, so everyone like.
God.
Like
Hold
we're
on.
gonna have to answer it in such short terms for how long it is.
So, and can I even say this word? I'm debilitatingly obsessed with a guy on Hinge who ghosted me as soon as he started seeing someone else. We literally didn't even make it to the first date, but he filled every criteria and was hot AF. I don't know how to stop driving myself insane over some man I've never met. I've literally used AI to create an Instagram account for a 40-year-old mum of 3 so I can stalk him. Help a Delulu king out, please.
This sounds like something I'd write.
Did you do this yourself?
Yeah, maybe I'm actually all the responses.
You just wanted us to answer them.
This is crazy. Girl, just keep scrolling through Hinge. Like, nothing more. Like, come on. Like, you know, get Bumble.
Swap out.
Fish in the sea. No, that's crazy. That hurts. That does hurt. You know, when you kind of like, if you're on Hinge and you find someone, you're like, you're so great. But then like, give it a couple weeks. Give it a couple weeks. You'll be someone new. You'll be someone.
I had
someone
this. Someone, and I will just like take this to the grave that I'm just annoyed about it. Someone that I was going to meet had a really cute sausage dog that we didn't, I can't even remember the person's name. It was just the sausage dog's name's owner. And then I got ghosted before meeting. And I was like,
and we talk about the sausage dog like it's like
a friend.
A friend of 10 years.
Oh my God,
It's
every time
crazy.
you guys see a sausage dog, do you just like send a picture? I
But
love that.
would you ever do the AI thing to stalk, or is that beyond
I mean,
your...
I've definitely done stuff like had like a bot account to like stalk people because I'm so like, oh no, I'm gonna like something because I feel like everyone's done that where they've liked something from like back in the day. Like definitely burner account. I don't know if I would AI, but I mean like if you're true,
Never say
it's
never,
true. Like I kind of respect it. Like you know
the audacity is
you've got to
amazing.
respect it. Like I enjoyed the commitment.
Yeah. And so secondly, I went on a date which lasted 20 minutes before he decided he wanted to leave. When I got home, I'd been blocked on everything but iMessage. Hours later, he added my best friend.
What did you do?
So they didn't mention that bit.
That's
It's
all
entirely-
the info we have.
It is slightly one-sided, but...
I mean, I've definitely like left dates early. Like I've definitely like I feel like I had like a whole healing process, and then I went on a date like this like spring, and I was just so bored that I was like, I'm actually going home now. And he was like, why? And I was like, because this is really boring me. I'm actually gonna leave. But like that's insane. Like I wouldn't go as far as like blocking someone and then adding your best friend. That's a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes you have to be like, this is crazy. Like, let it be.
Anyway.
I feel like it's so justified leaving, but then the blocking thing is kind of like I'm like, what did you do? I need the other half of that story.
Yeah, you're going to be there like, guys,
Which one of you was
this?
this?
Like, please
Like,
text me more
is anyone
info.
okay? Like, need some help.
Amazing. So yeah, so back to the music after that like crazy
It's a brief trauma dump.
but it's a really great time to be getting into your music. Like I just feel like obviously the second EP is coming out on the 29th of November. Are you excited? Are you nervous?
I'm buzzing. I'm so because I've been doing this EP since I was like 18. There's tracks on there that I wrote like literally the week I turned 18, and you know I'm now 21, and this year has been a lot. It's been the best year of my life, but it's been tiring and it's been hard work, and I'm excited to put the kind of pin in the project and kind of have that lovely little bit at the end of the year, and then have Christmas and let it be Christmas.
It's the perfect time. I feel you can really take a break afterwards,
and then jump into some new stuff, you know, just jump into some new things that have been kind of cooking up in my brain a little bit. Yeah.
Interesting. And without using words from the titles, what are 3 words you can use to describe the project?
Emotional, raunchy. There's one very raunchy song. Raunchy, intoxicating.
Ooh,
love those. Oh my gosh, I'm
Intoxicating.
so excited.
that's nice. I like that.
Lovely. Amazing. Well, we'll be eagerly waiting November. Very exciting times, and it's been so nice to finally sit down and chat with you.
I'm
It's
so
like,
thank
thank
you
you for
having me.
coming.
Yeah.
It's been so much fun. Thank you.
Having me. This has been great.
Yeah, and thanks to you guys for tuning in.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Goodbye.
Bye, guys.